Beneath our feet, hidden under layers of soil, leaf litter, and tangled roots, lies one of nature's most organized civilizations. We often walk past them without a second glance, perhaps noticing only a line of tiny bodies carrying crumbs or leaves. Yet behind this simple sight exists a sophisticated society, one that mirrors, and in some ways surpasses, the complexity of human cities. This is the empire of ants. Ants are among the most successful creatures on Earth. They have survived for over 100 million years, adapting to deserts, rainforests, grasslands, and even our backyards. Scientists estimate there are more than 12,000 known species, with millions of undiscovered ones still hidden in unexplored regions. They live on every continent except Antarctica, thriving in environments where many other creatures fail. If you were to weigh all the ants on Earth and compare that to the total weight of all humans, the numbers would be surprisingly close. Some estimates even suggest ants outweigh us. But what truly sets ants apart is their social structure. Unlike solitary insects, ants live in colonies that function almost like a single organism. Every member has a role, and every action serves the greater good of the colony. This division of labor is precise, efficient, and often unshakable. Within the vast empire of ants, three main castes dominate the hierarchy: the queen, the workers, and the soldiers. The queen, the beating heart of the colony. At the very center of this miniature kingdom resides the queen, the mother of them all. She is not a ruler in the human sense, issuing commands and making decisions. Instead, her power lies in reproduction. The queen's primary duty is to ensure the survival of the colony by laying eggs, thousands, sometimes millions, during her lifetime. The queen can live for years, far longer than any other member of the colony. In some species, a queen may live for over 2 decades, outlasting entire generations of workers and soldiers. Her size is noticeably larger than the others, her abdomen swollen with eggs. Surrounded by attendants, she rarely leaves the safety of her royal chamber. These attendants feed her, clean her, and carry away the eggs to be placed in special nurseries. Her chemical signals, or pheromones, regulate the behavior of the entire colony, a silent but powerful form of control. The workers, the endless labor force. While the queen ensures the future, the workers handle the present. They are the backbone of the colony, performing an astonishing variety of tasks. Workers are all female and, despite being sterile, dedicate their entire lives to serving the colony. Their duties range from foraging for food and feeding the young to building and repairing the nest. One of the most remarkable things about worker ants is their ability to coordinate without any central command. They rely on chemical trails, touch, and even sound to communicate. A single worker discovering a food source will return to the nest, leaving behind a pheromone trail. This chemical path guides others directly to the source, creating a living conveyor belt of ants, moving back and forth. Workers are also the colony's architects and engineers. They construct complex tunnel systems, chambers, and ventilation shafts that regulate temperature and humidity, all without blueprints or formal training. Their instincts and collective behavior allow them to adapt construction in real time, responding to environmental changes such as flooding or predator threats. The soldiers, the guardians of the empire. Not all workers are the same size. In many species, a portion of the colony is born larger, stronger, and equipped with powerful jaws, or even specialized chemical weapons. These are the soldiers, the guardians, who defend the nest from predators like spiders, centipedes, and rival ant colonies. Soldiers often position themselves at the nest's entrances, acting as living barricades. In times of war, they march alongside the workers, forming defensive lines or launching brutal assaults on enemy colonies. Some species, like the infamous army ants, have no permanent nest and instead move as an unstoppable wave, overwhelming anything in their path. A society built on cooperation. What makes the ant empire so extraordinary is the way each caste, queen, worker, soldier, functions as part of a single superorganism. No ant works for personal gain. Every action, from the smallest crumb carried to the largest battle fought, serves the survival and growth of the colony. This level of cooperation is rare in nature. While wolves hunt in packs and dolphins coordinate in pods, few species exhibit such absolute unity and selflessness. An individual ant, on its own, is vulnerable and short-lived, but together, as a colony, ants achieve feats that defy their size. constructing cities underground, farming their own food, and waging wars that reshape entire ecosystems. The invisible power beneath us. If you kneel down and watch a trail of ants long enough, you'll see more than just insects scurrying about. You'll witness a living network, a constant flow of energy, purpose, and communication. Every ant is a moving part in a grand machine, a cog in a clock that never stops ticking. In a world dominated by larger, more visible animals, ants remain hidden rulers of their domain. They shape the soil beneath our feet, recycle nutrients, and even influence plant growth. Without them, many ecosystems would collapse. And this is only the beginning, for the deeper we explore their world, the more astonishing their empire becomes. Beneath the surface of the earth lies a hidden city, one that rivals the complexity of our own urban landscapes. It is invisible to the casual observer, yet teeming with life and activity. This is the ant nest, a marvel of biological engineering, designed, built, and maintained by creatures no larger than a grain of rice. Unlike the towering skyscrapers of human cities, an ant nest spreads both vertically and horizontally, with interconnected chambers and tunnels extending far beyond what the eye can see. In some species, these structures plunge more than 8 meters deep and stretch over 50 meters across, housing millions of individuals in perfect harmony. The nest is not just a home, it is a fortress, a nursery, a food storage hub, and a climate-controlled refuge. Blueprints without blueprints. What makes ant construction astonishing is that there is no single architect drawing plans. Every tunnel, chamber, and passageway is built through collective instinct and simple behavioral rules. A worker ant does not know the final shape of the nest, yet guided by pheromones and feedback from the environment, thousands of ants together create structures that seem purpose-built with foresight. The building process begins with a single entrance hole, dug by the first workers after the colony is founded. From there, they expand downward, carving out a central shaft that branches into multiple horizontal tunnels. Along these tunnels, they excavate specialized chambers for different purposes: nurseries for larvae, storage rooms for seeds or fungi, resting quarters, and even waste disposal areas far from the living zones. Specialized chambers, rooms with a purpose. The Queen's Chamber, located deep underground. This is the safest and most guarded room in the nest. Here, the Queen lays eggs, attended by her closest workers. This chamber is spacious enough for the Queen to move freely, but enclosed enough to keep predators out. Nurseries, warm, humid rooms where eggs and larvae are carefully arranged by size and stage of development. Workers constantly move the brood between chambers to maintain the perfect temperature and humidity. Food storage rooms. For seed harvesting ants, these are treasure vaults filled with dried seeds. For leafcutter ants, these rooms hold cultivated fungi, their main food source. The air inside is carefully managed to prevent mold or spoilage. Ventilation shafts, narrow vertical tunnels that allow hot air to escape and fresh air to flow in, keeping the nest cool even in scorching heat. Waste chambers, isolated rooms used to store dead ants and refuse, preventing disease from spreading. The science of ant architecture. Ant nests are not just piles of dirt, they are engineered environments. Studies using plaster casts of abandoned nests have revealed an intricate network of tunnels optimized for both traffic flow and ventilation. In hot climates, some ants build mounds with spiral vents that circulate cool air from below. Acting like natural air conditioning systems, leafcutter ants go even further. Their fungus gardens require specific humidity levels, so workers constantly monitor and adjust conditions. If the air becomes too dry, they bring in moist leaves. If it becomes too damp, they open additional ventilation shafts. This is not random behavior. It is dynamic environmental control, achieved without leaders or advanced technology. Adapting to the environment, every nest is shaped by its surroundings. Desert ants, for example, build deep vertical tunnels to escape the searing heat of the surface, while rainforest species create sprawling shallow systems to avoid flooding. In flood-prone regions, some ants even build nests that can temporarily float, with air pockets trapped inside. Tree-dwelling ants take a different approach entirely, weaving nests from leaves, stitched together with silk produced by their larvae. The workers hold the leaves in place, while other workers bring larvae forward to sew the edges shut. A construction technique unique in the insect world. The constant expansion in ant colony is never truly finished with construction. As the population grows, new chambers are dug, old tunnels widened, and entrances relocated. Expansion is a continuous process, driven by the needs of the colony. During times of plenty, food storage rooms swell with resources. During times of conflict, soldiers reinforce tunnel entrances or create hidden escape routes. Remarkably, some colonies, like those of Argentine ants, connect multiple nests into supercolonies, spanning entire city blocks or even hundreds of kilometers. These sprawling networks allow millions of ants to share resources and coordinate defense as if they were a single, unified colony. A city that breathes. What is perhaps most remarkable about an ant nest is that it feels alive. The tunnels pulse with movement as workers carry food, brood, and building materials. Chambers echo with the constant vibration of mandibles cutting, scraping, and shaping the earth. Air circulates through the ventilation shafts, carrying the scent of the colony, a unique chemical signature that tells every ant, "You belong here." From the outside, it may look like nothing more than a small mound of soil, but beneath that mound lies a bustling metropolis, one that rivals the complexity of our own cities, built entirely by creatures we often dismiss as insignificant. If Chapter 2 revealed the complexity of a single nest, Chapter 3 takes us into the realm of ant megastructures, colossal works of engineering that make even human skyscrapers seem modest by comparison when measured to body size. These are not simply nests, they are fortresses, farms, highways, and even entire nation-states of ants, connected across vast landscapes. The leafcutter ants, the agricultural empire deep in the tropical forests of Central and South America. Leafcutter ants reign supreme. From a distance, their colonies appear as a network of tiny highways, each lined with workers carrying fragments of leaves, like sails in the wind. But these leaves are not food. Instead, they are raw materials for the colony's underground farms. Once inside the nest, workers meticulously chew the leaves into a soft pulp and feed it to a carefully cultivated fungus, the ant's primary food source. This relationship is ancient, stretching back millions of years, and the fungus cannot survive without the ant's care. The farming chambers for this fungus can be enormous, reaching several meters in diameter, with hundreds of interconnected gardens supporting millions of ants. In 2012, researchers poured concrete into a long-abandoned leafcutter nest in Brazil to study its structure. The result was staggering. Over 40 tons of soil had been moved to create a city the size of a small human village, complete with highways, ventilation systems, and farming zones, all built by creatures only a few millimeters long. The army ants. Cities on the move. Not all ant megastructures are static. Army ants, found in Africa, Central America, and parts of Asia, have no permanent home. Instead, they create living nests, called bivouacs, made entirely from their own bodies. Workers link legs and jaws together to form a protective sphere around the queen and brood, with internal chambers that can expand or contract as needed. Every night, the bivouac is dismantled, and the colony marches on, sometimes covering hundreds of meters per day, in search of prey. These nomadic supercolonies operate more like mobile military camps than permanent settlements, leaving behind a trail of empty forest where their relentless hunts have consumed every insect and small creature in sight. The weaver ants, architects of the trees in the canopies of Southeast Asia, Africa, and Australia. Weaver ants create aerial fortresses from living leaves. Workers pull leaf edges together, while others bring larvae forward to produce silk threads that stitch the leaves shut. The result is a series of green chambers suspended high above the forest floor, connected by branch pathways and defended fiercely against intruders. These treetop cities are dynamic. As branches grow or storms damage the structure, the ants repair and expand their living spaces. Colonies may span multiple trees, forming vast territories patrolled by aggressive worker guards. Supercolonies, the nation-states of ants, perhaps the most extraordinary megastructures of all, are the Unlike most ant colonies, which fiercely defend their territories, certain invasive species like the Argentine ant Linepitemo milli cooperate across vast distances. In some regions, millions of nests across hundreds of kilometers recognize each other as part of the same colony. One of the largest supercolonies ever recorded stretches along the Mediterranean coast of Europe, covering over 6,000 kilometers. Another in California contains billions of individuals living in interconnected nests. These supercolonies act like sprawling empires, dominating local ecosystems and outcompeting native ant species. Engineering without machines. What makes these megastructures truly astonishing is that they are built without machinery, blueprints, or central planning. Each ant follows simple behavioral rules, yet their collective output is precise, adaptive, and efficient. When obstacles arise, they don't panic, they adapt. If a tunnel collapses, workers clear the debris and reroute traffic. If a food source appears far from the nest, they construct new roads and adjust patrol routes. Ants achieve this through swarm intelligence, the emergent coordination of thousands or millions of individuals acting on local information. Humans use meetings, phone calls, and computer simulations to plan a city. Ants use scent trails, tactile cues, and constant feedback from their environment. Lessons in scale and sustainability. Many ant megastructures are built with materials sourced directly from their surroundings, without depleting the ecosystem beyond recovery. Leafcutter ants recycle nutrients through their fungus farms. Weaver ants use living leaves, causing minimal damage to their host trees. Even supercolonies maintain efficient waste disposal systems to prevent disease. For humans struggling with sustainable urban design, ants may hold valuable lessons. Build with purpose, adapt to change, recycle resources, and maintain tight social cohesion. The hidden giants beneath our feet. When we think of monumental architecture, we often picture the pyramids of Giza, the Great Wall of China, or modern skyscrapers like the Burj Khalifa. Yet in the silent, unseen world beneath us, ants have been constructing their own wonders for millions of years, some larger than our grandest human achievements when measured proportionally to their builders. And unlike human monuments, which often stand empty once completed, ant megastructures are always alive, pulsing with movement, buzzing with activity, and constantly evolving to meet the needs of their tiny but mighty inhabitants. In the vast empire of ants, survival is not guaranteed. Life in the colony is a delicate balance between prosperity and peril. For every day the nest is threatened by predators, rival colonies, and the relentless forces of nature. The defenses of an ant city are not passive walls of stone or steel. They are living, breathing fortifications, manned by tireless guardians, armed with weapons as diverse as their species. The soldiers at the gates, at the entrances to an ant nest. The first line of defense is always the soldier ants. Larger than their worker sisters, with heads shaped like armored helmets and mandibles sharp as blades, soldiers are living gates. Some species, such as the turtle ants, have evolved soldiers whose heads are perfectly shaped to block tunnel entrances. They simply wedge themselves in place, turning their bodies into a living door that no intruder can bypass without a fight. Soldiers patrol the surface near the nest, constantly scanning for threats. If a predator, be it a centipede, a spider, or another ant, draws too close, they rush forward with fearless aggression. Even against much larger enemies, soldiers will not retreat. Their mission is clear: protect the queen, the brood, and the colony at all costs. Chemical warfare. Ants are masters of chemistry. Through millions of years of evolution, they have developed biological weapons that would make any military commander envious. The most famous example is the fire ant, whose sting injects a potent alkaloid venom that causes burning pain in animals and can even be lethal to small creatures. Fire ants use their venom offensively and defensively, swarming over intruders and stinging repeatedly. Other ants use formic acid as a weapon. Wood ants in European forests can spray streams of this acid directly into the eyes or open wounds of predators, causing intense irritation and forcing them to retreat. Some species combine acid with a biting attack, injecting chemicals deep into the victim's tissues. Leafcutter ants, though primarily farmers, have powerful jaws capable of slicing through skin. In times of war, they form attack lines, each soldier snapping with surgical precision. The strategy of war. When ant colonies go to war, it is not a chaotic brawl. It is a strategic military operation. Scouts first locate the enemy nest, then return to recruit reinforcements. Pheromone trails are laid, guiding an army of thousands, sometimes millions, toward the battlefield. Some species, like the army ants, launch sweeping raids that overwhelm everything in their path. Their attacks are relentless waves of snapping mandibles, crushing and dismembering anything in their way. Even if defenders manage to kill hundreds, the sheer numbers of attackers often ensure victory. Territorial disputes between two large colonies can last for hours or even days. with thousands of casualties on both sides. The ground becomes littered with bodies, and the victors claim the spoils: food stores, captured larvae, and sometimes enslaved workers from the defeated colony. Defending against giants, not all threats come from rival ants. For many colonies, their greatest enemies are predators many times their size. Birds, lizards, anteaters, and even mammals like bears may attack ant nests in search of food. Against such giants, ants deploy swarm tactics, hundreds or thousands of individuals attacking at once, biting and stinging until the predator is forced to retreat. Tree-dwelling ants, like the weaver ants, have a unique tactic for deterring large animals. They drop from branches in unison, clinging to fur or skin, delivering painful bites until the intruder flees. This sudden aerial assault can be enough to make even monkeys think twice about raiding a nest. Engineering the battlefield. Defense isn't just about brute force. It's about shaping the environment to your advantage. Some ants modify their nest entrances to slow down attackers, creating twisting tunnels that force intruders into narrow, defensible choke points. Others dig hidden escape tunnels to evacuate the queen and brood during an attack. Certain desert ants build crater-like mounds around their entrances, giving defenders the high ground from which to launch attacks. Leafcutter ants fortify their foraging trails, clearing vegetation to improve troop movement and prevent ambushes. Sacrifice for the greater good. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of ant defense is their willingness to sacrifice themselves. An individual ant's life means little compared to the survival of the colony. Some species, like the Camponotus sondaci in Southeast Asia, have evolved suicidal tactics. When cornered, these ants rupture special glands in their bodies, releasing a sticky, toxic substance that immobilizes enemies, killing themselves in the process. This selfless devotion is the bedrock of ant society. Soldiers fight knowing they will likely never return. Workers defend the brood with no hesitation, even if it means certain death. In the world of ants, the survival of the many always outweighs the survival of the one. The unseen battles beneath our feet. Most of these wars and defenses happen out of human sight, hidden under leaves, soil, or tree bark. Yet every day, countless battles rage in the miniature world beneath us. These conflicts shape the boundaries of ant empires, determine which species dominate, and ultimately influence entire ecosystems. An ant colony is more than a home. It is a fortress, and every member is a soldier in the endless war for survival. Their weapons may be small, but their strategies are timeless, honed over millions of years. When we think of farming, we picture human hands planting seeds, tending crops, and caring for animals. But long before the first human plowed a field, ants had already mastered the art of agriculture and animal husbandry. In the hidden worlds beneath our feet and within the forest canopy, entire ant civilizations sustain themselves not by hunting alone, but by cultivating living resources, a feat once thought to be uniquely human. The leafcutter ants, masters of fungus farming in the rainforests of Central and South America. Leafcutter ants genus Atta and Acromiomex reign as the undisputed agricultural giants. Their foraging lines stretch for tens of meters, each worker carrying a piece of freshly cut leaf many times larger than itself. To the untrained eye, it might seem like they are gathering food, but they never eat these leaves directly. Instead, the leaves are raw materials for the fungus gardens hidden deep underground. Inside massive subterranean chambers, worker ants chew the leaves into a pulpy mash and mix them with their saliva. This forms the perfect growing medium for a specialized fungus, Leucoagaricus gonchlophorus, which serves as the colony's main source of nutrition. The relationship between leafcutter ants and their fungus is obligate mutualism. The fungus cannot survive without the ants' care, and the ants cannot survive without the fungus. Workers constantly tend to the gardens, removing contaminants, weeding out competing fungi, and transporting bits of the crop to feed the colony's larvae. These farms are vast and meticulously maintained. A mature leafcutter colony can contain hundreds of interconnected fungus chambers, each monitored for optimal humidity and temperature. Should a fungal infection threaten the crops, workers quickly isolate and remove infected sections, much like human farmers burning diseased fields to protect the rest. The aphid shepherds, ants as ranchers in temperate grasslands and forests across the world. Many ant species have developed a different kind of farming, one that involves herding aphids, Aphids feed on plant sap and excrete a sweet, nutrient-rich liquid known as honeydew. Ants find honeydew irresistible, and some species have turned aphid care into a full-time profession. Worker ants protect their aphid herds from predators like ladybugs and parasitic wasps, escort them to fresh feeding spots, and even shelter them in the nest during storms. In return, the aphids provide a steady supply of honeydew, which the ants collect by gently stroking the aphid's abdomen with their antennae, a process eerily similar to milking livestock. Some ants take their role as ranchers to the extreme, moving aphid colonies from one plant to another to ensure a constant food supply, or even overwintering them inside the nest until spring. Seed harvesting and grain storage in arid environments, where green plants are scarce for much of the year. Harvester ants have perfected a form of grain farming. They collect seeds from grasses and store them in underground granaries. These storage rooms are carefully protected from moisture to prevent sprouting or molding. Harvester ants don't just store seeds, they often process them, removing husks before storage. When needed, workers grind the seeds into a fine paste to feed the larvae, ensuring a stable food source even during droughts. Ants has pest controllers in some farming relationships. Ants act not as cultivators, but as guardians of crops. Certain plants, such as acacia trees in Africa and Central America, provide nectar and shelter for ant colonies. In exchange, the ants patrolled the trees, leaves and branches, attacking any herbivore from caterpillars to grazing mammals that tries to feed on the plant. This mutualism benefits both parties. The ants gain a safe home and food, while the plant receives round-the-clock protection, reducing the damage caused by plant-eating insects. Complex farming systems. In some cases, ants combine multiple farming techniques. For example, certain species in Southeast Asia both herd aphids and protect specific plants, creating a miniature agricultural ecosystem. They may maintain honeydew herds on one plant while defending another plant species that produces nectar for the colony. These strategies require not only instinct, but also incredible organization. Workers must coordinate foraging routes, defense patrols, and resource allocation, a level of logistical planning that rivals small human communities. Why ant farming matters? Ant farming is more than just an insect curiosity. It plays a major role in ecosystems. Leafcutter ants recycle plant material, breaking it down into nutrient-rich soil. Ants that protect plants can influence which plant species dominate an area. Harvester ants help distribute seeds, affecting plant diversity in grasslands. For scientists, studying ant agriculture offers insights into the evolution of cooperation, sustainable farming practices, and even climate resilience. Humans have practiced agriculture for about 10,000 years. Ants have done it for tens of millions of years, perfecting techniques that minimize waste and maximize efficiency. A glimpse into the future. As human cities struggled with food security and environmental challenges, the humble ant offers a model of closed-loop farming, systems where waste is recycled, resources are managed collectively, and survival depends on cooperation rather than competition. In many ways, the ants' farms are living laboratories, proving that sustainable agriculture is not only possible but has already been perfected on a miniature scale. If you've ever stopped to watch a line of ants moving along a trail, you might have been struck by how orderly it appears. Each ant follows a path as if guided by invisible street signs, moving with purpose, rarely colliding, and somehow avoiding traffic jams, despite the sheer density of travelers. Beneath this apparent simplicity lies one of nature's most efficient transportation systems, a network of roads, intersections, and navigational cues so advanced that scientists study it to improve human traffic management. The invisible roads of scent at the heart of the ant's transportation system is their chemical communication. When a worker ant discovers a food source, it doesn't keep the information to itself. Instead, it lays down a pheromone trail on its way back to the nest. This invisible scent path is a chemical map that other workers can follow. The more ants that travel along the path, the stronger the scent becomes, attracting even more ants. If a food source is abundant, traffic intensifies, creating a living conveyor belt of ants, moving in both directions. Outbound ants rushing to collect, inbound ants carrying loads back home. When a food source runs out, the pheromone trail is no longer reinforced and slowly fades, causing the traffic to dissipate naturally. This self-regulating system prevents wasted effort without the need for centralized control. Traffic rules without traffic lights. Unlike human highways, ant trails have no police officers or traffic signals, yet they flow smoothly because of instinctive right-of-way behaviors. In many species, outbound ants, those heading toward food, step aside for inbound ants carrying heavy loads, ensuring resources reach the colony quickly. Researchers have observed that ants will sometimes form dedicated lanes, one for outgoing traffic, one for returning traffic. Much like multi-lane highways, in species like the leafcutter ants, these lanes can be incredibly organized, with faster-moving ants on the outside lanes and slower, heavily burdened ants in the center. Adapting to roadblocks. One of the most impressive aspects of ant transportation systems is their adaptability. If an obstacle blocks the main trail, a fallen branch, a puddle, or even a human footstep, ants quickly spread out to find alternative routes. The first few pioneers may wander in random directions, but as soon as one discovers a clear path, it marks it with pheromones, and the rest follow. Within minutes, a new road network is established, bypassing the obstruction entirely. Some species even maintain multiple parallel trails to the same destination, allowing them to switch routes instantly when one becomes blocked. Bridges, ferries, and living structures. Ants don't just use the terrain, they reshape it. Army ants, in particular, are famous for creating living bridges with their own bodies. When faced with a gap, dozens or hundreds of ants link themselves together, forming a stable walkway that allows the rest of the colony to cross. Once the flow of traffic is complete, the bridge disassembles, and its members rejoin the march. In flood-prone areas, ants have been observed forming rafts out of their interlocked bodies, ferrying the queen and brood across water to higher ground. Leafcutter ants sometimes dig underground highways that connect multiple nests, protecting foragers from predators and harsh weather. Optimizing for efficiency. Ant traffic networks are constantly optimized through trial and error. When given a choice between two routes to the same food source, one short and one long, ants will initially explore both. However, because the short route allows more trips in the same amount of time, its pheromone trail becomes stronger, faster, leading more ants to choose it. Eventually, almost all traffic shifts to the shorter path, a process known as positive feedback optimization. Scientists have applied these principles to computer algorithms for solving complex problems, such as finding the shortest delivery routes in logistics or managing urban traffic flow. Intersections and communication hubs on large ant highways. Intersections serve as communication hubs. Here, ants exchange information through antennal contact, sometimes altering their destination based on what they learn. If a returning ant signals that a food source is nearly depleted, an outbound ant may turn around or follow a different path. In massive colonies, especially in supercolonies, these intersections can connect dozens of foraging trails, forming a web of commerce where information and resources flow simultaneously in multiple directions. The cost of congestion. Even ants are not immune to traffic jams. In leafcutter colonies during peak harvest, the sheer volume of returning workers can slow down the flow of outbound traffic. When this happens, ants adjust lane widths, add side trails, or temporarily change foraging schedules to spread the workload throughout the day. Some species even post stationary workers along the trail who act as traffic regulators, nudging or redirecting ants to prevent blockages. Why ant highways matter for the ants. Efficient transportation is the lifeline of the colony. Every delay in food delivery or defense coordination could mean hunger or vulnerability. But their highways also shape the environment around them, creating soil aeration, spreading plant seeds, and altering predator-prey dynamics in their path. For humans, studying ant highways has inspired innovations in swarm robotics, supply chain management, and traffic control systems. These tiny creatures, driven only by instinct and chemical signals, have solved problems that still challenge our most advanced technologies. The city that never sleeps. An ant trail is more than a path. It is a living artery in a city that never sleeps. Day and night, in heat and rain, the traffic flows. Each ant knows where it is going, each step contributing to the survival of a vast, unseen empire. The precision and adaptability of these highways stand as a testament to the ants' unparalleled mastery of cooperation. The empire of ants does not exist in isolation. Every tunnel dug, every leaf carried, and every battle fought sends ripples through the surrounding environment. Far from being mere background creatures in nature's drama, ants are ecosystem engineers. shaping landscapes, controlling populations, recycling nutrients, and, in some cases, determining the survival of entire habitats. Without them, the world as we know it would be profoundly different. The soil sculptors every day, ants move vast quantities of soil. As they dig and maintain their underground cities, they bring subsoil to the surface and mix it with organic matter. This natural tilling aerates the soil, improves water penetration, and promotes plant root growth. In grasslands, species like the harvester ants create small mounds that, over time, form microhabitats for different plants. The constant mixing of soil layers also helps distribute nutrients, much like how human farmers plow fields to prepare for crops. In tropical forests, the sheer density of ant colonies means that millions of tiny workers are constantly turning the earth. This creates a soil structure rich in oxygen and organic material, essential for the lush plant growth these forests are famous for. Seed dispersers and gardeners of the wild. Many plants rely on ants for seed dispersal, a process known as mimicry. These seeds often have a fatty appendage called an iliosome, which attracts ants. Workers carry the seeds back to their nest, eat the iliosome, and discard the intact seed in nutrient-rich waste chambers. This not only protects the seed from predators, but also plants it in fertile soil, increasing the chances of germination. In some ecosystems, as much as 30% of all plant species depend on ants for dispersal. By moving seeds far from the parent plant, ants help maintain genetic diversity and prevent overcrowding, essentially acting as nature's gardeners. Pest control specialists. Ants are voracious predators. A single colony can consume thousands of insect pests in a day, from caterpillars and beetle larvae to termites and flies. In tropical agriculture, certain ant species are even encouraged by farmers as a natural form of pest control. For example, in African and Asian citrus orchards, weaver ants are valued for their ability to protect trees from leaf-eating caterpillars and beetles. By maintaining an aggressive ant population, farmers can reduce or even eliminate the need for chemical pesticides, benefiting both crops and the surrounding ecosystem. The cleanup crew. Death and decay are inevitable in nature, but ants ensure that nothing goes to waste. As scavengers, they remove dead insects, animal carcasses, and rotting plant matter from their environment. This natural sanitation service reduces the spread of disease and recycles nutrients back into the soil. Even in human environments, ants play this role, cleaning up crumbs, dead insects, and organic waste. While their presence indoors may be unwelcome, in nature it is essential for ecosystem health. Symbiotic partnerships. Ants form countless mutualistic relationships with other organisms. They protect aphids in exchange for honeydew, guard certain plants in exchange for shelter and nectar, and even live inside the hollow thorns of acacia trees, defending them from herbivores. Some of these partnerships are so specialized that neither species can survive without the other. In the case of acacia ants, Pseudomyrmex ferruginea in Central America, the ants depend entirely on the tree's nectar and hollow thorns for food and shelter, while the tree relies on the ants to drive away insects, grazing mammals, and even competing plants. Balancing the web of life. By influencing plant growth, controlling insect populations, and recycling organic material, ants indirectly affect countless other species, from the birds that nest in ant-protected trees to the mammals that feed on the plants grown in ant-tended soils. In some ecosystems, removing ants leads to a collapse of balance, allowing pests to multiply, certain plants to dominate, and soil quality to degrade. Scientists have described ants as keystone species, organisms whose presence is disproportionately important to the health of their ecosystem. When ants become too powerful, not all ant influence is beneficial. Invasive species like the Argentine ant or the red imported fire ant can disrupt native ecosystems, outcompeting local ants, killing native insects, and altering plant-pollinator relationships. These supercolonies can dominate entire landscapes, reducing biodiversity and reshaping food webs. Yet even in these cases, the ants' success highlights their extraordinary adaptability and the sheer influence they can exert over their environment. Nature's unsung engineers. When we walk through a forest, meadow, or desert, we rarely think of ants as architects of that world. But beneath the leaves and soil, their silent work sustains the very foundation of life, nurturing the plants, enriching the soil, and keeping the balance between predator and prey. The empire of ants may be small in stature, but its reach extends across continents, influencing life far beyond the boundaries of any single nest. In the world of ants, there is no hero, no lone warrior, no solitary genius. The strength of their empire lies not in the power of one, but in the unity of the many. Individually, an ant is fragile, a tiny insect easily crushed underfoot, vulnerable to heat, cold, and predators. But together, ants become something entirely different, a superorganism capable of feats that defy imagination. From building bridges out of their own bodies to moving mountains of earth, ants demonstrate that cooperation is not just a strategy, it is their very nature. The superorganism scientists often describe an ant colony as a superorganism, where each ant acts like a cell in a larger body. No single ant understands the entire picture, yet collectively, the colony behaves as if it has a unified mind. Information flows not through speech or commands, but through chemical signals, vibrations, and touch. This distributed intelligence allows ants to solve complex problems without a leader. They can coordinate attacks, adjust construction projects, and adapt to changing environments with astonishing speed, all without centralized control. Strength in numbers. One of the most striking examples of ant cooperation is their ability to carry objects far heavier than themselves. A single ant can lift 10 to 50 times its own body weight, depending on the species. But when a task is too great for one, dozens or even hundreds of ants join forces. Imagine a group of ants carrying a dead beetle many times larger than any individual worker. They align themselves along its sides, gripping with mandibles, while others push from behind. Coordination emerges naturally. If one side moves too fast, the uneven pull causes tension, signaling the others to adjust. In some cases, ants even transport live prey back to the nest, subduing it through sheer force of numbers. Living bridges and rafts. Army ants are masters of body architecture. When faced with a gap, a stream, a crevice, or a hole in the forest floor, they link legs and jaws together to form a living bridge. Workers walk across their still connected sisters, and as traffic continues, the bridge adjusts its shape to improve stability. When the last ant crosses, the structure disbands, and its members return to marching. In flood-prone areas, ants employ another life-saving tactic: living rafts. Species like the red imported fire ant Solenopsis invicta interlock their bodies into a floating platform, with the queen and brood sheltered in the center. These rafts can survive for days on open water, drifting until they reach dry land. Construction on a grand scale. Building an ant nest is not the work of days or weeks. It is a continuous project spanning years, even decades. Thousands of workers dig, carry, and arrange particles of soil with military precision. Ventilation shafts, fungus gardens, brood chambers, all are constructed and maintained through tireless collective effort. In leafcutter ant colonies, millions of workers excavate underground networks so vast that human researchers have compared them to entire cities in scale and complexity. Without cooperation, such monumental architecture would be impossible. Collective problem solving. When an obstacle appears on a trail, the first few ants may seem confused, wandering around it aimlessly, but soon, others begin to explore alternative routes. As the successful paths are marked with pheromones, traffic naturally shifts toward them. Within minutes, the colony has rerouted itself with no meetings, no planning sessions, and no hesitation. This trial-and-error decision-making allows ants to adapt in The process is remarkably similar to certain computer algorithms. In fact, engineers have modeled ant colony optimization algorithms on this behavior to solve logistical problems in human industries. Division of labor. Cooperation in ants is not random. Each individual has a role, often determined by age, size, or environmental conditions. Younger workers may care for the brood. Middle-aged workers tend to the fungus gardens or maintain the nest, while older workers forage or defend the colony. This task allocation is flexible. If a large number of foragers are lost, nest workers may switch roles to replace them. This adaptability ensures the survival of the colony, even in times of crisis. Self-sacrifice for the colony. Perhaps the most profound demonstration of collective loyalty is the willingness of ants to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Some block entrances with their bodies during attacks. Others, like the exploding ants of Southeast Asia, Callipyces explodens, rupture their own bodies to release a sticky, toxic substance that immobilizes enemies. In the ant world, the death of the individual is insignificant compared to the survival of the colony. This unshakable devotion is the foundation of their success. Lessons from the ant empire for humans. The power of ants lies not only in their strength or resilience, but in the way they achieve together what no single member could achieve alone. Their collective intelligence, adaptability, and selflessness offer lessons in teamwork, crisis management, and sustainable living. Ants remind us that greatness does not always come from size or strength, but from unity of purpose. In their world, no one works for personal glory, only for the thriving of the whole. For all their mastery of construction, cooperation, and survival, ants are not invincible. Beneath the surface of their empire lies a constant struggle against a wide range of threats, some born of nature, others of human influence. In the ant world, danger can arrive in the form of a single predator, a rival colony, an invisible parasite, or even a sudden change in climate. The story of ants is as much about defense and resilience as it is about triumph and ingenuity. Predators, the eternal hunters, every ant, from the smallest worker to the mightiest soldier, is prey to something. Birds, such as antbirds in the Amazon, follow army ant swarms to snatch up fleeing insects, and occasionally the ants themselves. Lizards and frogs pick them off with lightning-fast tongues. Anteaters and pangolins use long, sticky tongues to consume thousands of ants in a single feeding. Even within the insect world, ants have enemies. Spiders, centipedes, assassin bugs, and predatory beetles all target ants with specialized hunting tactics. Some predators wait near nest entrances, ambushing workers as they come and go. Others invade the nest itself, seeking out the soft, defenseless larvae. Rival colonies, wars without end. In the world of ants, territory is life. Rival colonies often engage in brutal wars, with battles that can involve hundreds of thousands of individuals. Borders are constantly tested, pheromone markers overwritten by the enemy's scent. When two colonies of equal strength meet, the conflict can drag on for days, leaving the ground littered with bodies. Victors may take over the defeated nest, claim its resources, and even capture live brood to raise as their own workers, effectively enslaving the survivors. These wars are not mere skirmishes. They are existential struggles for dominance, and entire generations of ants may be wiped out in the process. Parasites, the invisible invaders. Some of the most dangerous enemies of ants are too small to see with the naked eye. Parasitic fungi like Ophiocordyceps unilateralis infect worker ants, taking control of their nervous systems. Under the fungus's influence, the infected ant leaves the safety of the nest, climbs a plant stem, and clamps onto a leaf in a death grip. The fungus then consumes the ant from within, eventually sprouting a stalk from its head to release spores, ready to infect others. Other parasites, such as certain species of wasps and flies, lay their eggs inside living ants. The developing larvae feed on their host's internal organs, ultimately killing them. Some parasites mimic the chemical scent of the colony, allowing them to live undetected among their hosts until it's too late. Environmental challenges. Ants are highly adaptable, but they are not immune to environmental change. Extreme heat can kill workers and dry out brood chambers. Heavy rains can flood nests, forcing entire colonies to evacuate or drown. In drought conditions, food and water sources become scarce, leading to starvation. Climate change adds a new layer of uncertainty. As global temperatures rise, some species expand their ranges into new territories, potentially displacing native ants and disrupting established ecosystems. Others face shrinking habitats as forests are cleared and grasslands are converted to farmland. Human impact. The most dramatic changes to ant life in recent centuries have come from human activity. Urban development destroys natural nesting sites. Agriculture replaces diverse habitats with monocultures, reducing food sources. Pesticides kill not only pest insects, but also beneficial ant species that help control them. Invasive ants, often spread accidentally through human trade and travel, pose a particularly severe threat. The Argentine ant and the red imported fire ant have been transported far beyond their native ranges, forming supercolonies that overwhelm local ant populations, alter plant-pollinator relationships, and even reduce native wildlife numbers. The resilience of the colony. Despite these challenges, ants remain some of the most resilient creatures on Earth. When disaster strikes, Whether it's a collapsed tunnel, a predator attack, or a flood, the colony's first instinct is to protect the queen and the brood. Workers will carry larvae and pupae to safety, block entrances with their bodies, or form living rafts to float to dry ground. Colonies that survive disasters often rebuild quickly, taking advantage of their highly organized labor force. Some even adapt their behavior after a catastrophe, changing foraging routes, altering nest design, or shifting activity to cooler hours to avoid heat. A fragile empire, the empire of ants, is vast and ancient, but it is not unbreakable. Every day, millions of ants fall to predators, parasites, environmental hazards, and the unintended consequences of human actions. Yet for each loss, there is renewal, a constant cycle of birth, labor, and defense that has sustained these tiny architects for over 100 million years. The survival of ants depends not on any single individual, but on the strength of their collective spirit. In the face of threats, they do what they have always done: adapt, cooperate, and endure. For millions of years, ants have thrived in nearly every corner of the planet, from scorching deserts to dense rainforests, from treetops to underground labyrinths. They have built vast empires without leaders, constructed cities without blueprints, and fought wars without chaos. Their world, though miniature, mirrors our own in striking ways. As we step back from the tunnels, trails, and towers of the ant empire, a question emerges. What can we, as humans, learn from these tiny architects? 1. The power of cooperation. Perhaps the most obvious lesson ants offer is the value of working together toward a shared goal. No ant builds a nest alone, and no ant survives without the colony. Every task, from finding food to defending the queen, is performed not for personal gain, but for the survival of the whole. In human society, cooperation is often complicated by ego, competition, and mistrust. Ants remind us that true strength comes from unity, and that the success of the group often depends on the willingness of individuals to put the collective first. 2. Adaptability in the face of change. Ants are masters of adaptation. A blocked trail, they find another way. A flooded nest, they move the colony. A sudden shortage of food, they change foraging strategies. Their ability to rapidly adjust to challenges is a direct result of flexible problem-solving and decentralized decision. In a human world facing climate change, resource scarcity, and shifting economies, this adaptability is a survival skill we cannot ignore. 3. Sustainable living. Many ant species live in perfect balance with their environment. Leafcutter ants recycle plant material into fungus farms. Weaver ants build their nests without damaging the host trees. Seed harvesting ants store and distribute seeds, contributing to plant diversity. Unlike human cities, which often consume resources faster than they can be replenished, ant colonies operate on a closed-loop system where waste is minimized and byproducts often become resources. They demonstrate that prosperity and sustainability can coexist. 4. Communication without noise. Ants don't have spoken language, yet their communication is incredibly precise. Through pheromones, touch, and vibration, they share urgent messages about food, danger, or nest maintenance. Every signal has purpose. There is no wasted noise. In an age where humans are bombarded with constant information, ants show the value of clarity and efficiency in communication. The right message, delivered at the right time, can mobilize an entire workforce. 5. Division of labor and role fluidity. An ant's role is not fixed for life. Workers may switch duties depending on the needs of the colony. This fluid division of labor ensures that critical jobs are always filled, even in emergencies. In human organizations, rigid job roles can hinder adaptability. Ants teach us that flexibility, being ready to step into a new role when needed, can mean the difference between survival and collapse. 6. Resilience through sacrifice. From the soldier who blocks a tunnel with her own body to the exploding ant that dies to immobilize an enemy. Ants embody the idea that the individual is secondary to the survival of the whole. While humans may not need to make such physical sacrifices, the principle applies. Sometimes the greater good demands personal cost. The resilience of an ant colony comes from this shared willingness to act selflessly when the situation calls for it. 7. Infrastructure that serves the community. Ant nests are not monuments to power or vanity. They are functional, efficient, and built to serve every member. Ventilation shafts cool the chambers, nurseries protect the young, storage rooms, safeguard resources. Every part of the infrastructure exists for the colony's well-being. In human cities, where design can sometimes prioritize prestige over practicality, ants remind us that infrastructure should serve the people first. 8. Long-term thinking. Some ant queens live for decades, and their colonies plan for seasons ahead, storing food and preparing for environmental changes. This long-term perspective ensures stability through difficult times. Humans, often focused on short-term gains, could learn from this approach. Invest now for survival later. A healthy future requires preparation, not just reaction. 9. The balance between competition and coexistence. While ants are fierce competitors, they also engage in mutually beneficial relationships with plants, fungi, and other insects. They know when to fight and when to cooperate, a balance that sustains their place in the ecosystem. In our globalized world, where nations and corporations constantly navigate the tension between rivalry and collaboration, ants show that lasting survival often depends on strategic alliances. 10. The humility of greatness. For all their power and influence in the natural world, ants remain invisible to most of us. They do not seek recognition or status, only the quiet success of their collective life. In a human culture often driven by fame and visibility, ants offer a different kind of greatness, impact without ego. The final perspective. The empire of ants is a reminder that complexity, resilience, and intelligence are not the sole domain of large creatures. In their tiny bodies and vast societies, ants embody principles that humans strive to perfect: unity, adaptability, sustainability, and foresight. If humanity can learn even a fraction of these lessons, our own cities, nations, and global community might thrive for centuries to come. Just as the ant empires have for over 100 million years. The next time you see a trail of ants, look closer. You may not just be watching insects at work. You may be glimpsing a blueprint for the future of civilization.